Introducing Vision Lifestyle Trips. Travel more and save more. Create lifetime memories. Enhance your lifestyle and proven mental and health wellness. Get access to specially curated VIP private group vacations with member rates at high-end worldwide resorts and cruises. That is not all. Vision Lifestyle offers every major bucket list destinations worldwide that cannot be compared. Gain access to private hotel booking engine with member savings. As much as 80% at resorts worldwide. We offer member access to unlimited weekly vacation homes worldwide and as much as 50% off car rentals worldwide. With most major brands. Want to cruise? Vision Lifestyle offers access to global ocean and river cruises with upfront savings or back-end dollars to apply to future free travels. Need to fly? Get access to flights with all major airlines worldwide at the best airline published rates. It's known. Vacations make you happier. Happiness makes you healthier. Healthiness makes you wealthier. Become an Envision Lifestyle member today.
What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday, fun day. Jason, what's poppin'?
What's good? Happy Sunday.
Man, happy Sunday, fun day to you. I hope you having a good day so far. And I literally forgot to start the Instagram. I just did it. So welcome, Instagram. Sorry, y'all. Jason, what's going on, man? What's popping? It is still Men's Health Month. And we are still talking about things that affect men, your lifestyles, and all of the things pertaining to manhood. So welcome to the show. We got Vincent is doing a party for his child today. So he's in father mode. And dig this, Landon was doing the Dad Stroller Club in Daytona. I'm sorry, not Daytona, but Dallas this weekend. So he's over in Dallas supporting fathers, men of color with young children. So these are all guys who have children that are stroller age, 0 to 3 years old. So it's really powerful to see that community evolve and thrive. So they have a full itinerary for any weekend that they come together. And it was just really amazing to see some of the things that they were doing to make sure that they support fathers properly. So kudos to you guys. And Landon is the head of the chapter here. And Jason, you have been on the circuit for your movies and doing more film projects. So congratulations to you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really
do.
do.
Awesome. Well, listen.
Been staying busy.
I see that very much so. So it's all good. It's been a long, interesting week. All the fellows was like, Koffe, we're not gonna be there for men. We have men stuff going on. I was like, listen, kudos to you guys for doing what dads do. I absolutely love it. It's awesome to see fathers doing what fathers are supposed to be doing anyway, and that is enjoying the fruit of their loins.
Absolutely. Hey, I'll put it this way. It's, even though we are missing a few people this particular go around. I mean, it's truly a blessing when you really think about it, because there's no, as they say, there's no hood harder or tougher than fatherhood. And, so kudos to those guys. Even for Seth's party, if it wasn't for the fact that I had some other things going on, this podcast included, I'd probably be there. right? Spending time with them.
Thanks all day.
Absolutely, because I mean, one of the best ways to mentor is to be present. And I think that mentorship comes not just within the house, but also outside of the house. So, you definitely want to have positive men and examples around whenever you are raising a child. So kudos to Vincent and Landon.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. So you know what, Jason, I've been the news has been a lot this past week. We normally tackle the news and what's been going on in the news. And I am saddened to announce the passing of the Carr family, the husband and wife,
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they got into a heated debate about a week ago now, and they were on Facebook Live. Shortly thereafter, the husband took the wife's life, and then he took his own soul. Not long after he
Mm.
took her life. Apparently, they were having some domestic violence issues, and of course, unbeknownst to the public, they appear to be a healthy, happy couple, and then all of a sudden, mayhem just showed up, and there were allegations of incest on both sides,
Oh
and the
wow.
husband decided to unalive his spouse and then unalive himself. So it was crazy and tragic, and it rolled all out in real time, unfortunately. Of course, the assailant did not, that display, as far as that was concerned, did not display on social media. It was a few moments after it ended that
Mm-hmm.
she was unalived by him, unfortunately. And then, the tragedy when he got in the vehicle and then he took his own soul shortly thereafter, after a short stint with police in a chase to capture him. So it was a fortunate event. They do have underage children that were involved in this scenario. And of course, now they are without both of their parents in the same exact
Right.
day, which is horrible, horrible, horrible. So definitely keeping that family in our thoughts and prayers. And of course, she was a major influencer in the social media circuit. Her name was Duchess Dior on social media, but her real name is Zaria Carr. But she was Duchess Dior on the social media circuit, and it was pretty heavy on social media, where she pretty much had her full life on display. You can kind of check and look
Mm-hmm.
at social media and all the things that she was doing, which were positive for the most part. Things that she was displaying was positive for the most part. And then, of course, like I said, this tragic turn of events happened, and she was, her life was taken prematurely. Super sad. In other news, more closer to home, my dad's best friend passed. One of his best friends
Mm.
passed. He literally went to the doctor and never came home.
Dang.
Literally went to the doctor and had a massive heart attack, and that was it. He passed a couple of days ago, which was really super, super tragic. Young guy in his 50s. So very, 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 very tragic situation, and just so many things happening, in and around our lives right now, Jason. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah,
One thing
absolutely.
for sure that has been a challenge for all of us is the onset of this war and Trump's position in the war, and him taking sides and basically saying that, it was what he needed to do, participate in this particular war between Israel and Iran, and it has nothing to do with us. We're not in the Middle East. And of course, it is affecting people being able to travel to that region of the world right now. It is literally everybody is standing still as far as traveling over there,
Mm-hmm.
unless they've been, summons by some type of governmental authority. People are literally canceling whatever they had going on that is headed in that direction. As a matter of fact, we were scheduled to go to Dubai through our travel, and we've actually postponed that as well. People were kind of a little bit upset about it, but at the end of the day, I think we better be safe than sorry.
Right, right. Um, I'm gonna put this out there. I just want people to think about this. And I don't care what anybody's political views are, Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever. But I am going to put a couple things out there. Number one, Trump has shown himself to be everything that he said and everybody else said that Obama was going to be. Multiple wives, multiple baby mamas, bad health, can't make a deal. And I don't know if you remember, but he had a newscast years ago when Obama was in office saying that he can't make a deal. Obama can't make a deal. And watch, we was going to be at war with Iran. And here it is in 2025. He clearly can't make deals and he's doing things that are illegal. And we are at war with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only thing that I can say to even help defend his position is the fact that we're in a global market, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And being in a global market means that we need to do the best that we can to keep everybody at peace
Right.
with each other. outside of that, I just personally feel we need to mind our business, you know. But here it is. Now we're
Mind your
about to be
business.
in the mix. Yeah, we're about to be in the mix, and he's talking about all these people dying in the Civil War and during our Revolutionary Wars and independence. When we all these different wars and stuff. He's complaining about how we're losing lives and everything else, and then the first thing that happens is we go push ourselves into another war, right?
Correct.
Not minding our business. And I think that's just sad, man. My heart goes out to all of those families of those servicemen that may come back injured, and they'll definitely come back psychologically different.
That's a fact. And it's so crazy because one of my friends was saying she was just like so distraught because she was like, all of a sudden they're calling in, people that are in the reserves and everything to go
Right.
address something. And she's like, what in the world is going on? Like things have been calm. They haven't been chaotic or catastrophic. And now here it is, you just, uprooting families and
Hmm.
it's just, it's really, it was actually honestly unwarranted, but they're basically based on everything that has been publicized. It is a result of these tariffs, them not agreeing with him for the tariffs, and
Right.
you know what I mean. It's really an underlying issue that has nothing to do with harm to the U.S. in any regard. There's not been any imminent threat of our soil in any
Right.
regard. So what you're doing is personal. It has nothing to do with the safety and protection of the nation at all. It's all personal,
Correct.
totally
Absolutely.
personal.
And I mean, okay, so I also believe, and I agree with you 100%. I also believe that a lot of this has to deal with him not being strong on other things that he said. When he said that he was going to end this war over in Russia and the Ukraine, and on his first day with the stroke of a pen or some crap he said,
Mhm.
and then him not being able to deliver, him acting like he's going to be strong on certain things and then not being able to deliver. I mean, so basically, other world leaders are taking a look at this and it's like, what are you going to do?
Correct.
So his hand is getting pushed, and at some point, if you sit here and you talk a big game, at some point somebody's going to test you, and either you're going to have to crap or get off the pot.
Period.
And it's one of those deals to where, for whatever reason, we're so invested in Israel to where we feel a need to involve ourselves in a lot of the things that's going on that really have not much outside of a global economic standpoint. Really doesn't have anything to do with us.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And in other news, right now the stock market is still in the frenzy. Still in the
Hmm.
frenzy. They're still talking about the performance of the stock market, the mixed results, and the
Right.
validity of the market, the volatility of the market right now. Of course, it has a lot to do with the uncertainty of the economic climate. Also, the housing market being weakened right now has another
Hmm.
major impact on what's happening in the stock market right now. So the stock market is showing a lot of volatility with
Hmm.
between the war and the housing market. The instability in the housing market is really flared up in the US right now. And so there's just a lot of stuff going on in and around us. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is Apple is being sued by its shareholders for overstating AI progress and allegedly attempting to monopolize on the market
Hmm.
for cellular devices. So they are getting all kinds of stuff. So the US Department of Justice and several other states are currently in the middle of filing lawsuits against Apple, claiming that it has illegally maintained a monopoly over the smartphone community. And by restricting the competition, it is harming consumers' rights.
Right.
That is going to be quite interesting. And
Yeah.
for a while, for a while, it has been all types of stuff going on with Apple. But what most people don't know is that Apple and Android are made in the same factories overseas. They're just have
Absolutely.
different labels on them, but they're made in the same factories. And now Apple has started to cross over to some Android use in that some of their um, chargers are
Hmm.
Android friendly, literally.
Right.
Because I got a big old juicy iPad right here, and I can
Hmm.
charge it with an Android charger.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, some of that, from my understanding, with the going to, I guess that's the USB-C, is that
Hmm.
they were forced to,
Correct. They want
by
them to
global
play nice.
governments.
Correct. They
Right.
want them to play nice in the sandbox of life.
Correct. Now, the thing that most people, I don't think, realize or know is that Apple actually uses Samsung chips as well. So Samsung
Correct.
makes chips that are used in the Apple phone.
Correct.
And if you really think about the two main smartphone creators and products, are Apple and Samsung, right? Not that there's not other great products out there, but those are the two major players. And so if I was Samsung, I would be a little worried, because whatever happens to Apple eventually is going to trickle down and it's going to involve Samsung in some way or another, in my
That is
opinion.
a fact. That is a
Yeah,
fact because both of them, and they got to work together because of what they actually utilize that coincides with each device, regardless of the actual brand. So they
right.
do have some type of communal connection in order for them to reach the mass markets that they reach all the time. So this is very, very
Absolutely.
interesting in what's going on with that as well. Now, I definitely want to see what happens with that. And so, with that, we're going back to the topic of discussion for this month. So, this month we have dedicated the show in its entirety, to communication on men and the health of men, the mental and the
Hmm.
physical, social, economic, the whole gamut of manhood, if you will, for the month of June, as we tapped into it for Father's Day and had conversations surrounding it. Fantastic show, got some great reviews from our Roku television family, lots of views. So kudos to you guys for a fantastic show. Jason, you and the fellas really, really share some insightful information. People were so excited to actually see that particular episode. So kudos to you guys. I wanted to make it a little bit more intimate today, since we only have you here on the panel today, Jason. We wanted to make it just a little bit more intimate, and for you to kind of help us to put some things into perspective when it comes to men. So I want to talk a little bit about our particular hue. Of course,
Hmm.
we're not a biased show. However, we want to talk from where we are in this particular moment. So there are some things that it talks about men's health and how to help men to maintain their health when it comes to men in our hue, or more easily stated, men of color.
Hmm.
So, different things. It talks about the prioritization of self care and setting boundaries. Jason, when you think about self care and setting boundaries that would associate with your mental health, what does that look like in your life specifically? Or,
Um,
from a
well,
from a perspective of, just a man's life overall, you being a man.
right. And understand that, I mean, of course, like you said, this is an intimate conversation between you and I. So clearly, I don't speak for all men. I'm just going
Mhm.
to speak from my ideals, right? That's my little quick disclaimer. But how does it look? First and foremost, I do the best that I can to try to take care of my mental health first. All right. And in saying that, I know we're talking about, well, this is men's mental health month, etc. And that sounds so cliche, but just hear me out. And the reason being is because if I can't control my thoughts, then it becomes harder to control my feelings. If I can't control my feelings, it also becomes harder to control my health, right? So, when you talk about mental health is just the start of a lot of things. And one of the things, especially in our hue, that we need to do is to start to cure ourselves or work on ourselves from a mental standpoint. Yes, we listen to a lot of music that has a lot of negativity. We're really digging the trap beats and everything else. We're dancing to it, etc. But our subconscious mind still is infiltrated with the negative tones and frequencies that are, a lot of our song lyrics these days, even in country music. I ended up seeing a interview with K Michelle where she was talking about, even in the country music genre, that we're still talking about a lot of the same stuff, being derogatory towards women, etc. So, really and truly, as a man of color, we have to focus on healing our mental health first. Everything is not about pride and ego. Everything is not about how tough we can be, etc. Most of it is really, or should be, about fixing our families and fixing our communities, right?
Mhm.
It's okay to have the trap music, the gangster rap, the whatever. But one of the things I talk to my daughters about all the time, especially when they started getting more and more into music, is that when I was coming up, we had gangster music, we had all kinds of stuff, but we also had positive music. What do we
Mhm.
have out now that's really positive? We had the Cosby Show, we had A Different World, we had all, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, all these other different shows and things that we can see and hear. We still went and talked to Big Mama, right? To our
Mhm.
grandparents and everything else. And nowadays, a lot of these young people are just getting all of their news and influence off of social media.
Mhm.
And let's just be honest with each other. A lot of that is not real life.
Right.
That is a persona that's put out, and these people are getting popular and they're getting following, even though what they're saying may not be true. It may not even be real life. And most likely it's not real life. It's
Mhm.
just a persona that they put on. So in terms of healing, definitely making sure that we take care of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. One of the things I also want to push a lot of men of color to do is to take care of your health, man. Now, I don't know if I said that already. If I said it twice, that just shows you how important it is to me. Because I've been on the journey myself, 20 plus pounds down, because my levels, I mean, as I'm getting closer to 50, my levels kept creeping up. So when you start taking care of yourself, both mind, body, and soul, it just makes it that much more easy to pour into your family and to start making positive changes.
Hmm. For sure, absolutely. And then it's imperative too, as we begin to maturate and the new discoveries of how our body adjusts to the maturation process. We have to
Hmm.
be aware of what our body no longer is attracted to, if you will,
Right.
for a lack of a better way of addressing that. But the attraction that our body has, it changes as we maturate, and it makes a different choice, and it says, I don't want that anymore. I'm not interested in that
Hmm.
anymore. What I'm interested in is this now. And we have to make those necessary adjustments just to respect the body's desire for something new, for a change. And I think that that can be very challenging for some and very, very welcoming for others, where they just go, okay, I remember years ago, my dad, when he got around that age, he found that he was not going to be able to consume regular salt anymore, like just salt in
Hmm.
itself. And he immediately eliminated it. He didn't make an excuse for it, or try to justify continued usage or anything like that. He just said, okay, cool. And just never used it again. Found alternatives to make his food savory and just
Right.
eliminated it. Whereas other people may have a little bit of a struggle to eliminate things. But I was watching something recently, Jason. This particular program was talking about detoxing without putting something in the place of what you're actually removing from your life. Learning how to
Hmm.
just remove it and not look for other things to put in its stead. Just be okay with that being gone. Just release it. Be able to release it and be mature about the release and why you are releasing, and don't feel like you are obligated to add something in its stead. And it was interesting, the whole dynamic of it, because most people feel like, if I rid myself of this one thing, I gotta go do this. No, that's still
Hmm.
creating some type of crutch system, as opposed to you just embracing the shift of difference. So on to the next thing. It talks about rediscovering some creativity in who you are. And I know you are in mass discovery in your life right now, especially with your acting, and the
Hmm.
explosion of what's going on with your acting. Talk to us about the creative outlets. How important is it for a man to have creative outlets independent of his family, but interdependent with his male community?
Right, right. Darn good question. Darn good question. Um, I personally feel everybody should have some type of creative outlet, a positive creative outlet, whether it's like me and I'm into cars and acting, or whether you're into golf or tennis or whatever else. You need to have something outside of that household to focus on that brings you some sort of enjoyment. Like a positive vice is what I like to call it. Everybody has a vice, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's drinking, smoking, hanging out all the time, whatever it is. I think everybody needs a positive vice. I feel that is very important, especially for men, because a lot of us are bred just to work. I mean,
Mhm.
go cut the yard, go wash the car, fix the car, do this, do that, pay the bills, go get a job, everything else. You need that outlet. And for me, it went from racing cars, which is highly expensive, to acting. And I
Mhm.
actually use acting as my form of therapy, if you will, right? It gives me the opportunity to be different characters outside of myself, whether it was imagined or just something that someone decided to, I tried out for the cast and I got the role, to try to do that, is outside of my normal self. You know, it's very important. To me, especially a man, without hobbies is probably spiraling. They're probably inside of their own head. It's probably a bunch of negativity in there just due to all the crap that's going on in the world. And you need a positive outlet.
Mhm.
So everybody should get into their creative space, whether it's drawing, acting, running, whatever, I think it's very important.
I like that. I like that. And just identifying, I think it's the discovery. I went to a worship experience this morning. And this guy was talking
Hmm.
about the guy was talking about discovery. He was talking about this, he's the real thing that you need to be doing is discovering,
Yeah.
looking at identifying, discovering more about yourself, discovering more about, what makes you activated, agitated, and then what makes you provoked to do something about it. What is that thing that would provoke you to do something uniquely different? And you talked about it, for yourself, it was the levels. I saw my levels were heading in a direction that I didn't want them. So I had to go make an adjustment. And
Right.
that agitation was that adjustment that I needed to make for a positive, impact in my own journey. And I think that's so important that
And it
we
wasn't a huge
understand.
adjustment either. I mean,
Yeah,
it was not a
yeah,
huge adjustment. It was just
yeah,
the consistency of doing
yeah.
it.
There's a word right there. Consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency is a key. We've been on a journey in our business endeavors as far as with becoming profitable traders, and
Right.
consistency has played such a massive part in that happening. It's like the minute you become inconsistent, it shows in your trading, like for sure, like real bad.
Hmm.
And it's so
Absolutely.
funny. I'm studying this book, and it's trading in the zone is what it's called. Trading in the
Hmm.
zone. For anybody that's in there out there that is interested in thinking about trading, it's a fantastic publication. And interestingly enough, Landon and I were conversing about this on yesterday because he's in that same space as we are, and we were conversing about it yesterday. And the interesting thing about it is the guy that wrote this book, his first name is Mark, his last name escapes me right now, but it's the only person that wrote this, Trading in the Zone. Nobody ever duplicated the book. He actually started writing that book in the 70s.
Mm.
Now, interestingly enough, we were talking about how did he know about that then, and we didn't hear about it until the millennium. Like what?
Right.
Huh? You know, he was sharing. We were just talking about the exposures that our Hugh wasn't privy to.
Hmm.
Versus now, of course, we have access, but look how far behind the eight ball versus someone of a different hue who had the exposures, the opportunity, the means, and the information. And for this guy to start talking about trading in the 70s up to now, that is
Hmm.
crazy. That's
Oh yeah.
crazy. Trading has been around for over 100 years, almost nearly 100 years. So it's not like it's something new or anything like that. It's just the information wasn't readily accessible to all
Hmm.
ethnos. Everybody didn't know. People didn't had no idea that in the 70s and 80s the banks were trading their actual revenue during that time. So when you were making
Hmm.
your deposits and things like that, they didn't know that at that time they were trading that currency in order to
Hmm.
make more currency, making that money make babies. And that's why the FDIC, if you ever pay attention, it's never going to exceed giving you back $250,000, regardless of how much money you put inside of a bank. They're only required to give you back $250,000 if something were to happen to that financial
Right.
institution. Why? Because they really don't keep it. They take it, they use it, and then they give it to you when you show up for it. And that's it.
Absolutely. I've heard multiple accounts where people have gone and made large withdrawals or tried to make large withdrawals at the bank, and the bank didn't have the money to give to them. They had to come back a
Literally
later
did
date.
not have the money to give to them. And now it's your money that you put in there.
Right.
What do you mean you don't have my money that I put in here that shows
Correct.
available in my balance? And you say
Hmm.
you don't have it. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah,
You go to make a $10,000 withdrawal or something, they tell you to come back in 2, 3 days so they can give it to you.
that is well, yeah, that's really crazy. It's crazy, but it's true because again, that revenue they use it, and they of course that's something
Hmm.
that most people, the average person is not privy to that information. But as you begin to study about money and revenue and things of that nature, you'll discover more and more things about what's happening. Go do this deep dive discovery as to why your organization would match your 401k. Why would they do something like that? Why would they even be interested in
Right,
matching?
because they have to get something out of it for them to agree
Exactly.
to do that. So they're not doing that just because you're a
Exactly.
great
It is
employee.
not because it's not because they really have that much care and concern. It is something that they're receiving on the back end. But you better believe they're benefiting from it. And then without getting too deep into this, there is a psychology behind that as
Hmm.
well for why they do that. But we'll get into that on another show.
But you
Another
brought up
thing,
something before you change. There was another thing. There was something that you brought up, and I just want to make sure that we address it briefly. And that is that you brought up something that I felt was very powerful. And that's you said the gentleman has been reading and participating in this particular business since the 70s.
mhm,
And we're just a lot of us are just now finding out about it. That's powerful in itself. And the reason being is because there are a lot of elites and the powers that be that try to keep us down by a lack of information. One of the things that I would challenge, especially the men, is to pick up a book. Because a lot of us, I like car magazines more than anything else. Over the probably the past 5, 10 years, I started reading more, started picking up books, and it's amazing what you'll find between those two covers and what's listed in black and white, right? Being the
mhm.
text. And we fail from a lack of knowledge. So as we are becoming more and more privy to things that were previously kept from us, while it should spark interest and you should want to get into these businesses to help your families, don't run in there blindly. Please
Correct.
educate yourself,
Correct.
because especially like in trading and when you're dealing with any form of currency, basically you're leveraging money and you're hoping that the market goes a particular way. Well, here's the deal. If you're leveraging your rent money or anything like that, you want to be as educated as you can, because if you go in there blindly and you make a bad decision, you just put yourself and your family further behind instead of,
And you
so
should
please
never,
educate yourself.
ever, 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 ever trade money you don't have.
Oh,
Never,
I
ever do
definitely
that.
agree.
Never, ever do that. It has to be
Yep.
additional, income that you have, and you want to grow that particular revenue. But
Hmm.
like, don't ever risk what you don't have in order to in hopes of gaining something. The market doesn't owe us anything. It's all probabilities. And so the market doesn't owe us anything. So that's just not wise. And unfortunately, of course, people do that every day.
Hmm.
But it's just truly, truly not wise. I'm glad that you brought that up because there are people that do that every single day. They're making those um, decisions that could be super detrimental. And you said something, very, very true in that it could push somebody much further back than they
Right.
than they intended to be for the success of their family to continue to forge forward. So that is a very true statement. It's hard pill to swallow for some people, but it is a very true reality check. There's another thing that it talked about on here, and that is making certain that you're practicing the power of forgiveness, especially forgiving yourself. I know
Mhm.
I was kind of tapping into just briefly some articles that were shared with men that were talking about the self-forgiveness aspect and how it can be quite difficult to forgive yourself for things that you feel affected your life adversely from yesterday. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, it could be. However, if we hold on to what was, we won't experience what is and what
Hmm.
shall be. Regardless of what happened yesterday, it's irrefutable that it's not going to be changed. The only thing that we are able to do is take that information and use it as, say, like you talked about, a book.
Hmm.
Use it as pages of your life's book, where you can just
Right.
go back to it for a reference point, so that in the future you won't make that same choice that caused you some form of detriment from yesteryears. You know now that
Hmm.
this particular thing caused this particular result, and as a consequence, it's not something that I'm going to choose to do in my tomorrow. And so self-forgiveness, it has to be something that you're good with. We cannot go back. And people often will ask, and I know you've heard this statement several times, Jason, what would you tell your younger self? What would you, if you had a chance to do it all over, what would you do? It
Hmm.
doesn't matter, because it's
Right.
not real. That's
Right.
not real. There's no reality to that at all. Now, what could be real is, what are you doing now that's going to add value to your future self? Let's address
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Because here's the deal. Um, I always felt like when they asked that question, what would you go tell your former self, that it's somewhat of a loaded question. And the reason being is, the reason why you are where you are right now is because of those decisions. We can all agree to that.
Hmm.
So even though it may be something negative that happened in the past, you know, sometimes that negative turned into a positive at some point in your life. And a
Hmm.
lot of us don't want to come to grips with it because we're so focused on the negative. So
Right.
something negative that you may have done in the past resulted in something positive either happening, or a decision that you made that resulting in something else happening, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because you learned, hopefully, from that negative decision. I've asked myself that question before too. Is like, what would I tell my former self, and what would I have wanted to do different? Now, there's some things that I may or may not have chose to do different, but you never know what the outcome would be if you did, if you made that decision. See, that's
Exactly.
the part that you just don't know. So if you're thinking about something negative that either A, happened to you, or B, that you did to someone else, one of the things to keep in mind is that if you went back in time and you could change that, it's not to say that a year down the road, a week down the road, or whatever the case may be, that something else worse may not have happened.
Hmm.
So, yes, say
Hmm.
for instance, if we've known each other for 40 years or something, and I did something to you 40 years ago, if I could go back and change that decision or whatever was made, as long as it wasn't anything where I physically harmed you or your family, would I do it differently? I don't know. Because here's the deal. I may have changed the outcome of what my dealing was with you, walked over here across the street and got into it with somebody, and then bang, I may not be here now, right? So there's so many variables and things that could happen. And so I agree with you. I mean, so often we look back with no real plans for what we're doing going forward. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I mean, and you've heard this comment before. I like cars. So one of the things, or one of the analogies I like to make, is when I'm sitting in the car and I'm driving, one of the first things I notice is how big the windshield is, because I'm looking forward, I'm looking where I'm headed, right?
Hmm.
The other thing I notice is how small the rear view mirror is.
Hmm.
So it's good to know what's behind you, but is that your actual focal point, or should that be your focal point?
Correct.
No.
Because you're not going to spend anywhere near as much time backwards as you will forward. And it's like I tell people, if you look at how your body is designed, your feet
Hmm.
aren't designed backwards. Your
Correct.
feet are designed forward. Like literally every
Hmm.
part of your body, everything about you is forward thinking. Your whole body
Hmm.
is directed forward. All of your anatomy, all the variations of your body are in the front.
Yeah.
Everything that's similar about every human being is in the back. Everything
Correct.
similar about every human is in the back, but
I agree.
everything different about every human is in the front.
Absolutely. And I mean, I used to struggle with this comment, and I had to sit back and really truly think about it. and it was a comment by several multimillionaires that I follow, you can still follow to this day, and they would say that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. You're never truly stagnant. It's something to think about. So you're regressing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather focus on progress and how I can do something differently moving forward. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if I ever come across this situation or, again or whatnot, and I don't, I just try not to make the same mistake that I made in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily want to go and change the past because that was a stepping stone. That was something for me to go through to learn from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right. And the stretch between the past and the future is just a new decision. And that's the thing that we
Right.
have to learn how to grab a hold of, is that new decision. That's what makes the past and the future different. You can end up having the
Hmm.
same if you don't make a different decision. But once you make a different decision and you step out of that roller coaster ride, if you
Hmm.
will find yourself in a new future experience as opposed to what appears to be the same experience habitually. So you got to
Hmm.
make a different decision that would propel you into the new that you want to really experience in your life. That's what's
Right.
very, very important is, you want to do something different so you can have a new and exciting experience. Another thing that it talked about, and I'm glad we talked about that forgiveness, is, and this is something I wrote this down, and it's something that we definitely have to continue to infuse into our communities, is the professional assistance. Going to someone who has been certified and has the credentials to really help you
Hmm.
to address whatever is going on from a standpoint of your mind. Something
Hmm.
that, somebody that can really, really hone in, and they have the skill set, they have, the certifications and all those kind of wonderful things to be able to assist you with some things that you're not able to address on your own. Funny, funny, a long time ago, I remember, because of course I'm a preacher's kid, and I got ordained when I was much younger. But
Hmm.
I remember somebody was talking to me about counseling them, and I said, I don't do counseling. You're gonna have to go to a counselor for that.
Hmm.
And they were like, but I thought you, no, 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 no. Just because someone is, a sharer of the gospel, is a person that teaches or studies or shares biblical principles and truths, it doesn't mean that they're equipped to be able to address mental health needs. And that is a misnomer in a lot of spiritual sectors, to where they feel like just because I got a license to do this, I can do that. No, it needs to be dealt with by someone in that field that can add value in that regard.
Hmm.
When it comes to that, you want to be around somebody who has studied what goes on with the mind. Not to say that,
Hmm.
not now. I know plenty of clinicians. I have several friends that are clinicians, and they actually have studied to be able to support and add value from a psychology standpoint.
Hmm.
However, a lot of clinicians will tell you, I'm only going to go so far before I have to refer you to someone else to get the support that you need ultimately, because some things we just cannot get assistance by somebody who just been around, if you will,
Right.
or they lived a particular thing, or however they want to play on it and feel that they can help you, because mental health is not a game, family. It's not a game, and it's not something to play with. It
Absolutely.
is something that is important that we seek out, wise counsel, medical professionals, to be able to help us to get through the hard places in our lives. Sometimes the places are so hard that we will have to use, Western medicine to assist us
Hmm.
to be able to be healthy and be okay. And sometimes you will have to use medicine, and we want to get to the place in our hue where it's not taboo to get the help that you need. It's not taboo to seek
Absolutely.
out the support that you need in order to take care of yourself. Talk a little bit about that, Jason. When it comes to
Mhm.
men, and I know you've seen over time how guys can be judged for even talking about going to get support for mental health.
Right, right, right. First and foremost, I always like to pretense this conversation with saying this. Never take advice from somebody you wouldn't trade places with. Let's just start there.
Mm,
So if I'm seeking some type of counsel, whether it is professional or not, if you're not living your life in a way that I can foresee myself living my life, I'm not interested. I'll still listen. I'll still listen because you can learn a lesson in anything, right?
mhm,
But I'm not applying. The second thing is, I think it's very important. This is something that I saw growing up. I don't see it nearly as much now because it seems like everyone, especially men, are trying to be a team of one, as if we don't have a lot of challenges. Because over the years, there's still that stigma that you got to be strong, that you got to be tough, that you know just deal with it, right? And that's a very dangerous place to be, especially with all of the things that are going on in the world today. Let's just be honest with each other. There's a lot more going on in the world today, in my opinion, with social media, the amount of information that comes at us and how fast it comes at us, than the people in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s had to deal with, right?
mhm,
One of the things I'm not seeing as much is the council of men's groups. And what I mean by that, a men's group could be you and a circle of positive friends that are moving in a good, positive direction, right? And I don't see that nearly as much. I see a lot of people clinging to what well, I guess popularity, I guess is a way to say it.
mm,
Likes. They're following people for likes and everything. It's like me being married, it's hard for me to take advice on marriage from somebody who's never been married. It's not to say they may not have something good to say, but if
mm,
you have not dealt with certain experiences, like you were saying earlier, you can only take me so far, and I can only listen so far. Same
mhm,
thing when I was mentoring the high school boys. People probably hear that and they're like, "Oh man, that's good. You was pouring back into your community." What they're missing is that it was a group of men older than me, some younger, quite a few around my age group, especially at the time that I was doing it, that was pouring into these young men. The part that normally gets missed is the fact that I myself, even though I am mentoring young men, was seeking counsel from the elders. I want to say that again. I myself, even though I was mentoring high school young men, was also seeking counsel from the elders within this group.
mhm,
And what I also like is these were more of your old school men. If they see you moving in a way that is not godlike or that you shouldn't be moving, they will pull you to the side and be like, "Hey, brother, we need to have a conversation."
mhm,
Where
mhm,
I don't see that a lot today, especially
mhm,
with, I guess the term is, these YNs, these little young cats.
mhm,
I've noticed that sometimes well, not even sometimes, a lot of times when you try to talk to them, they automatically think you're trying to check them. It's like, no, no, I'm trying to check up on you. I
mhm,
see you doing things that are going to get you on a road that I don't really think you want to travel.
mhm,
Because once you get on this road, it's going to be very hard for you to get off of it. So
mhm,
this is me playing unk, or whatever the common terminology is these days, since I'm a little older, reaching out, trying to talk to some of these young men. And it just seems like we've gotten to a point now, especially with a lot of our younger men, to where everything you say to them is offensive, no matter what it is. Hey man, just wanted to let you know your shoe is untied. Hey man, why don't you mind your business, cuz? You know what I'm saying? Why you even looking over here? It'll be something just that simple. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to keep you from tripping in the middle of this mall. You know what I mean? I just noticed your shoe was untied, just tried to let you know. I mean, we've gotten to that point to where you can't even talk to each other. And I think that is going to become a bigger detriment, especially in our community, than in a lot of these other communities. But as men, you should have a circle of positive men that you can talk to and bounce ideals off of. If you're not getting what you need from them, or you don't feel yourself progressing, then I agree with you 100%. Seek professional counsel. But also, don't let that professional counsel be so quick to rush you towards taking medication for something that most likely you just needed to talk through. That's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I notice sometimes when I talk to some of these gents and they're talking about going to these counselors, is they're real quick to, it's just like when you go to the doctor, they're real quick to put you on some type of medicine to hurry up and fix the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to what you heard me say earlier, where I noticed some things not going right in my health, and I made a small adjustment and I worked harder on being consistent with that adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is to be accountable, to notice that there's something not right. The second thing is to actually address it with some form of positive action.
Mm-hmm.
And that positive action does not always mean that what you're going to hear back is going to be positive, you know, to what you want to hear. All of us want to hear something good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's not going to be roses, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Be ready to hear a hard message. If I go and I seek counsel from an elder, whether it's in the church or my community, and they tell me I'm not moving correctly and they notice some things, I got to be able to take that on the chin.
Mm-hmm.
But once I hear it and reflect on it, agree that obviously if he's seeing this, then that's something that's probably happening. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how do I address it and how do I move forward?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if you're not seeking some form of counsel from somebody that you would trade places with, my question to you is, what are you doing with your life? How do you plan to progress if you don't have anybody, or if you're not willing to go talk to somebody about your challenges that you're having in your life?
Mm-hmm.
We're all having challenges, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
All of us. If you look on the internet, you see the men fighting against the women, you see the women fighting against the men, and it's not just in our community, but definitely in our community. I don't see that on the, I guess you could say, the white side of Twitter as much,
Mm-hmm.
or TikTok or whatnot, but I damn sure see it a lot on our side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, we need to progress and stop focusing on the women and just get ourselves together as men. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that will ultimately help move our generations as well as our families in the right direction.
I love that. And that makes a lot of sense. It's all about clarity, being very clear, understanding your emotions, understanding your feelings, understanding
Hmm.
why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and then addressing whatever is going on the inside of you, and addressing it in a healthy manner and in a community that can receive what it is that
Hmm.
you're sharing. Like you talked about the elders, it's so important that you have that community. It's even a biblical principle that there's safety in the multitude of wise counsel. In the multitude of wisdom, there is safety to be able to make better choices. Funny thing, and of course, me being a Bible person, I recently I was actually studying about Moses, and Moses was a major impactor,
Hmm.
and a long time ago, major impactor when it came to the lives of the children of Israel. And interestingly enough, he was at a crossroads when he had to make decisions in order to assist. And like you were talking about, an elder giving wise counsel, he was burning himself out because he was the only one giving the wise counsel. And it
Hmm.
was countless people always coming to him all the time. And from sunrise to sunset, not only is he getting burned out, they getting burned out, waiting on an opportunity to share what it is they're dealing with and for him to give them some type of resolve. Well, his father-in-law came to him one day. He said, "Hey, man, you can't do this anymore. You need help. You need help. You need to identify other men like yourself
Hmm.
who have the same type of level of wisdom, maybe not exactly the same, but that can assist with smaller groups of individuals. You don't need to try to handle all this. He literally told him, take my advice, listen to what I'm telling you as an elder. Listen to what I'm telling you. This will help to preserve your life. It'll preserve this community, and it'll be able to get the actual solution that the people still need. They still need the solution, but there has to be another way to execute it." And so Moses took
Hmm.
heed to what his father-in-law said, and he literally started creating elders and leaders and deacons and all these other things to assist with those people. The people that can handle more, he gave them more. The ones that can handle less, he gave them less. But he
Mm-hmm.
identified other people that could hold those ranks and do that same thing. And it is imperative that we have that wise counsel in our life, somebody we can lean into, that we can trust to be
Mm-hmm.
truthful with us. We can trust to have integrity, and their life reflects what it is that they're saying. And I love how you said, if I'm not, why would I take wisdom from you and I cannot exchange the relationship with you?
Correct.
As far as me living, I can't put myself in your predicament and be good with that. No. So me taking counsel from you would not make sense. Although, like you said, God can use anybody to give you a message. We're talking about a
Absolutely.
series of messages. We're not talking about a message. Because if you ever notice, whenever something happens, you can have a message from a messenger
Mm-hmm.
versus a series of messages from this particular messenger on a continuous basis. That's a whole different thing. If you're going to get the continuous information from somebody, you got to be able to lean into that person, and for the value that they add to be succinct to where you are headed, and their life to be reflective of what it is that they're giving to you. If their life does not reflect that, then why are you following that? That wouldn't be
Absolutely.
smart. That wouldn't be smart. Yeah.
Like one of the things I like to say all the time, and it's something that you've heard before too, Coffee, I know you have, is that if you hang with five broke people, I can tell you who's going to be the sixth.
Correct.
Also, if
Correct.
you and that same saying, if you're hanging with four losers, I can tell you who's going to be the fifth.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's so who you hang with the most, whether you realize it or not, has a large impact on your life.
Absolutely.
So if you only hang out with people who make $20,000 a year, chances are your mindset is going to be a $20,000 a year mindset. It's
Hmm.
not to say there's anything wrong with that if that's where you desire to be. If you're
Hmm.
hanging around a bunch of six-figure earners, your mindset becomes those of those same six-figure earners that you're hanging
Hmm.
around,
Hmm.
millionaires, etc. Right?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
applies to life, or whether you like dealing with cars, if you like golf, if you know, or money, or whatever the case may be. If you want a strong family, it probably would not behoove you to hang out with the neighborhood player.
True. Very, very true.
Something with them, go watch the game. But if
Right.
you're hanging with this person all of the time, not that there's anything wrong with that person, but if it's not what you desire,
Oh man, you guys, Jason is having some technical difficulties. No, 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 no. He's having some technical difficulties on his end. Yikes, he was speaking some good wisdom. But listen, we already are at the top of the hour, and it is literally the end of the show. Hopefully he comes back, but his screen was completely frozen. Jason, are you back? Are you back?
am I back? Can you see me?
Yes, you were completely
Okay.
frozen.
Hey, I stay out in the country. Sometimes the internet blips every now and again. Did y'all catch everything I said, or do I need to repeat anything? Are we good?
We caught some of it, but not all of it, because you like really just totally went out.
Basically, my message, even though I went more in depth before, is that you should be surrounding yourself with people that you want to be the most like.
Hmm.
Whether if you want a strong family, hang out with family people. If you want to be strong at being a mechanic, go hang around car people, right? I mean, it's just a general message. You would think it'd be common sense, but as they say, common sense isn't really not that common. So, just hang around the people that are more like what you desire to be or become.
Exactly. Exactly. Listen, guys, this has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. Jason, thanks so much for being with us today. I know you have a lot going on with your acting, as well as everybody else in their respective places. Super excited about everything that's being shared this month in the
Hmm.
space of manhood and mental health and physical health and emotional, fiscal health, spiritual balance, all these wonderful things that we have been sharing for this month of June. Excited about the last show of the month that will be coming up, and we will be sharing more from the men's perspective. I'm so excited. I cannot wait for you guys to get back and share more with us. It's always been an honor. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us, Jason. So I appreciate you truly, and I know
And
our
thank you.
community appreciates you as well. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in and tapping in. We'll see you guys on the next edition of the P Coffee Brown Show. Until next time, grace, peace, and an abundance of blessings.